Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Yep. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to usaprepares.com. We're delighted you're here, and we broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. There's a link to your instructors on the website, usaprepares.com. If you'd like to call us, we'd be delighted to hear from you. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. If you'd like to listen as you travel or listen while you're working, 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. Gwyneth Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Gwyneth.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this evening? Oh, this morning. Sorry, I haven't been awake.
I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for keeping the seat warm here at USA Prepares while I had to do a couple things over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate that. So,
that's quite all right.
One of the things I'd love to chat with you about is about preparedness. And I'd like to read an email. That I received. And I'd like to not say who this email is from, but this is from a person maybe in her 40s. I know this person. And she and her mom live in Florida. And the email was a few days ago. Her father had just passed away recently, so the situation is, Mom is adjusting to life without her husband of decades. And nice, happy marriage, and he passed away. And so here's the email. And the reason I'd like to read this is not to violate confidences, and I won't. But it kind of shows how some families are deciding what to do, how some families have more challenges than others. And so here it goes. Mom is adjusting. But, Mom is adjusting. But then this week, she was hot on moving back home. I'd love to do that, but she cannot care for herself. I'd thought about getting a part-time care for her in her house, but it's crazy how expensive it is. They called Tuesday to say that they were going to evacuate the residents to Tennessee. And I went and talked to Mom. I probably should have let them take her. And let me just interject here, that she was in an assisted living situation. I probably should have just let them take her, but she got very upset and wanted to stay. I tried to reason with her that we might not have power for weeks, depending on how bad the storm is. So I've been trying to get both houses ready, but it's difficult with Mom trying to help. Now, her mother's probably close to 90. Things on the road are crazy. Gas is hard to find. We should have left on Tuesday to get out ahead. Even today I thought we could still leave and head to Missouri. But I think hunkering down is the best thing. Let's see, Of course, every news update has me second-guessing. We have supplies, water, and I'd like to fill up the truck, but I have both cars filled up, and I could take fuel out of the race car. I have 2 gas cans in case I pass a gas station that has fuel and not a line. Just taking it one day at a time. That's the email. And you can read into that the frustration, the concern, the fear, the unknowns. And that was the situation before. I haven't heard from her since. I sent an email before the broadcast, just checking in and saying, you're always welcome here in Missouri, before, during, or after. But what she was saying is, even if she wanted to get out, by the time her mother and she discussed the situation, and her mother did not want to leave, they decided to stay. But after that, if they decided to leave, they couldn't. And one of the things that we've talked about on this broadcast several times over the years is that if you're going to get out, you need to get out ahead of the pack, not in the pack. And because you can be trapped. Now imagine this. You've seen these lines of cars. 3 lanes wide, 4 lanes wide, 5 lanes wide. You've seen the evacuation. Now, how many of those cars have a full tank of fuel that are in front of you? What happens if one of them, just one of them, runs out of fuel? Bumper to bumper, the term that they used to call heavy traffic in the East Coast when I was growing up, they call that rubbernecking. Rubbernecking.
Because everybody's
bumper
looking
to bumper,
out
side
the
to
window.
side, no one goes anywhere. Yeah. So when you're in a situation like this, what is the probability that one of the cars ahead of you is going to run out of fuel, or overheat, or have a breakdown? Pretty high. Now, what happens when just one car, under normal circumstances, has a breakdown on the interstate or the highway? Traffic gets jammed for miles. What happens if it's bumper to bumper in one car? There's no place to go. The shoulders have been. We've replaced the medians with these cheese graters. These cables that won't let you get onto the grass in between the oncoming lane and you. The east and the west lanes, or the north and the south lanes. We've replaced all that, at least in Missouri. So it's a real mess. And my advice is, if you're going to evacuate, get out ahead of it. And should you have gasoline? Of course. Of course you should have gasoline. But you need to store it safely. And you need to keep your garage door down so that your neighbors and passers-by and the common thugs don't see those red gasoline cans and say, hey, there's some gas. I remember that they keep their garage door open, and I remember seeing that they've got 2 5-gallon cans or 3 or 4, and they keep it in there for their lawnmowers. So we'll just help ourselves. So that was an email of frustration that I read. I didn't embellish it. That's what it said. And what's frustrating to me is I had a chance to chat with John Statmeller yesterday. He called me up, and we talk often. And I said, John, my number is 1 out of 1,000. I only think 1 out of every 1,000 people is paying attention to what we're saying and what we recommend based on our experiences. I really think the number is 1 out of 1,000. He said, you may be right. At the same time, I remember looking at an image. I received an email of a ball game at Virginia Tech over the weekend. Now, I'm really not interested in ball games because I don't have time for that. And when you're all done watching a ball game, what have you accomplished? To me, not very much. In my circles, not very much. But it looked like the stadium was absolutely, positively packed. It looked like everybody was having a great time, including the guys in short pants running around the field, chasing the ball. Everybody's having a great time. But on the other hand, how many people are preparing for the eventualities that can come our way? Not too many. And that's what today's broadcast is about, preparing. Gwyneth, do you have any thoughts on what I just said?
Well,
God bless you.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, I just had a couple of sneezes. I don't know if you were going to talk about this before or after I sent you that email earlier. On, I think this is what I was wanting to talk about tonight anyway. Is about, I come from New Zealand. In that part of the world, they call it civil defence. And in New Zealand, they actually have a Department of Civil Defence, which means basically what we would call disaster preparedness. In New Zealand, they call civil defence. And they have a whole government department over there. And that government department's only job is to make sure that the populace is prepared for any natural disaster that is possibly conceivable that might come their way. And that's a pretty important job. And they do television advertising, they do radio advertising, and the back of every yellow pages is taken up with not advertising, but with a one-page detailed plan, in short, of what you should do in a natural disaster of various kinds. Tsunami, earthquake, volcanic eruption, flood, bushfire, etc.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
That's a really, really good idea.
Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, it sounds like you've got quite a cold going on there.
Well, it's basically just sneezing. It's wattle flowering time here. It's a kind of acacia that grows around here. And I've been hanging out laundry this afternoon in among the wattle trees. Mm-hmm. And so probably I think it has to do with pollen rather than a cold. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it does. But we live with it. I'm not overly incapacitated. Yeah.
That's great.
So, but anyway, there we go.
I just
found out. But the wattle flowers are beautiful, but they're part of the natural ecosystem here. And they make a very, very good bee fodder. They're full of pollen, and the bees absolutely love them. And it feeds them, and it keeps them strong. Yep, so that's good.
Great.
So like I say, it's just something that you live with.
Mm-hmm. I just got an update 30 seconds ago about the gal that sent me that email. And she and her mom are okay. They're in Florida. I don't have any details, but they're alive and they survived. I don't know about power outages, but I'm sure it's going to be extremely difficult. I was talking to another one of our instructors who came to visit yesterday here at the farm, and we were talking about the shortages that I believe we're going to experience as a result of these two superstorms, one in Texas and the other one in Florida. And I recounted the Arab oil embargo of 1973 here in the United States, where about 5% of the fuel was oil was withdrawn from the system, and it caused widespread panic. People would line up, for blocks to get gasoline, and they could get $3 worth, depending on their license plates, whether they were odd or even, and whether the day was odd or even. And it was really a problem. And I explained that I could see the same kind of thing happening with everything now as a result of these two storms. Plywood, 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x8s, wiring, plumbing parts, fixtures, appliances, everything you could possibly think of, roofing materials, tires, automobiles, all of these flooded automobiles. And it's a big deal. It really is. So I expect prices will go up in the short run. Of course, fuel is up. How much will it go up? I don't know. But what I did was I decided that, it's time that we replace some tires on our vehicles. and I'd rather get them before it's hard to get them and before we don't have any choices as to which tires we would get. And our truck, the one that we use to haul cattle, uses load range E tires. E as in Edward. And that roughly equates to 10-ply tires. And the reason is we have these rocks, these sharp arrowheads that they plant pointy side up on the dirt roads around here so that we get flat tires. We decided that it's time to get another set of tires so that we can move the cows if we need to in our trailer. So that's something that we decided to do, and some other supplies that we needed to get. We decided to get them before the price goes up. So word to the wise, I believe, and I can't prove it. If history is our guide, the prices are probably going to increase on pretty much everything. So there you have my thought. Do you have any comments on that, Guineith?
I'd say you're probably right, and I would say that it's probably going to be nationwide, and even possibly into some parts of Canada and Mexico as well. So if you think that you can get away from this by either going north or south, you're quite mistaken, because you're going to see a grey market or a black market develop in a lot of areas. It's possible that the import of certain products into the United States from either Canada or Mexico could be restricted or even banned. And that's ordinary product, okay? Because those countries might decide that they need those products for themselves and can't handle the fact that, I don't know, for instance, all their plywood or sheetrock is going to the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
And
bottom of the hour. We'll be right back. Guineith, we're talking about New Zealand and the Department of Civil Defense. In the United States, we used to have civil defense teams. And we used to refer to civil defense as an organized but non-military effort to protect Americans for military attack. And that, in the last 20 years, has been replaced by emergency management and homeland security. And I think they're doing a lousy job. They're doing a lousy job because we...
Just an outsider looking in, that's all. But I think they are. Since 9/11.
Yeah, we used to have civil defense drills when I was in elementary school. We would have duck and cover. There were fallout shelters. They were stocked with food and medical supplies and things that people would need. And it was common to think about disaster preparedness. It was, and now it's been relinquished to FEMA and Homeland Security, or Emergency Management and Homeland Security. And I don't think they're doing very much, at least in my opinion. As a matter of fact, I want to share this with our class. When we had our first expo, well over 7 years ago, we invited those guys. We invited the emergency management people of Springfield, Missouri, to come and tell us what they knew, and to share with us, their information about disasters and preparedness, and because they have so much money compared to USA Prepares. Well, they weren't interested. We had the biggest event that Springfield had ever seen in terms of preparedness, in the biggest venue, the biggest events, and they would not come. And in retrospect, let me tell you the rest of it. We invited the Red Cross. How stupid we were. We actually, one time we thought that they were on our team. They declined. The Red Cross declined to come to the largest preparedness event in the area, the Red Cross. And the military, we invited them. They declined. And these were the days when we actually thought these guys were on our team. They declined. And private private pilots who were organized to patrol the borders of the United States during World War II and after, the Civil Air Patrol. We invited them, and they declined. And they all declined at the same time, on the same day. And via a Freudian slip, a slip of the tongue, one of those three groups of people decided, well, they slipped. And they said, well, we were told to stand down by Washington. Washington, D.C. told these three groups that they will not come to USA Prepares Get Prepared Expo. They will not participate. And before that, they were excited about coming. They were excited about, teaching. The Red Cross was excited about, teaching us about bandages and how to prepare wounds, to keep the infection rate down and so forth. They were going to teach us about first aid, the Red Cross. The Civil Air Patrol was going to talk about how they teach young people how to fly, how to patrol, how to protect our borders, if you will, from invasion. That's just a group of civilians, right? And they were told to stand down. So obviously there's a connection between the government and the Red Cross, the government and the military, we know that, and the government and the civilian, or the Air Patrol, Civil Air Patrol. So I have not much use for any of those organizations. As a matter of fact, I want to share something with you that really bothers me.
That's a shame.
Yeah. I was at I've got to be really desperate to go to Lowe's, Lowes. It's a home improvement store. They have a competitor called Home Depot. And the two of them slug it out. But I believe they price fix. Because if you want to buy something, it's the same price in both of those stores.
Both stores.
That's been my experience. Yeah. I think they have an office of cooperation. And each one of them, Home Depot and Lowe's, and I can't prove this, it's just my opinion, that they have an office of cooperation. And what they do is they say, okay, how much are you going to charge? Okay, that's good, we'll do that, we'll match that. And I believe that they set prices, which is collusion. Anyway, that's my opinion, I can't prove it. I hope that they sue me so we can talk more about it. But I was at Lowe's because I needed something, and over the weekend. And the guy, God bless you. And the guy ahead of me was with his wife, and they were at the cashier checking out, and he had on one of these veteran military caps, and he asked for his discount. And so after he checked out and he pulled his card away, it was my turn. I said, "So do you have a military discount?" In my best Columbo, and the cashier said, yeah, 10%. So, wow. Huh. Do you have a discount for handicapped people? She looked at me like, what, are you kidding? I said, do you have a discount for handicapped people? She said, no. I said, okay. How about senior citizens? No. Just the military? Yeah. 10% for the military. I said, are those the people who carry guns and are told to kill people at a distance? Those guys? Are those guys with bazookas and rockets and mortars and cannons? The people who inflict damage across the world? Those people? She said, well, they're keeping us safe. They're keeping us safe. I said, so you're going to give a discount of 10% to people who carry guns and kill, maim, wound, but you won't give a discount to people who pay for that, like me, a taxpayer, or a senior citizen, or the guy right next to me who's handicapped. You won't give a discount to any of us, right? And she didn't know what to say. Now, I object to giving the military a discount. Now, I think a strong military is important. And I don't have anything against any of the individuals in the military. But I do have a problem with going to foreign countries and blowing up their infrastructure. Because some of our corporations would like access to their resources, like oil and rare earth minerals and materials like that. So I have a problem with that. And I have a problem with special groups getting discounts that other groups can't get. Now, specifically, I hate Lowe's. And I'm going to tell you why. I used to be a contractor, and I used to rehabilitate buildings, apartment houses, and single-family homes. And I would go into Lowe's, and they'd have a 50% off sale on kitchen cabinets. And I was buying one set of kitchen cabinets per month. And I was hanging them myself. And I'd rip out the sheetrock, rip out the plumbing, put in new kitchens in these apartment buildings, and I'd buy the building, and then I'd fix them up and rent them. That's what I did. And that's when I was a banker, and I would do that at night and on weekends. And Lowe's would have a 50% off sale on kitchen cabinets. And the gal at the kitchen cabinet department said, well, Vinny, you buy so many cabinets, we'll just give you 50% off all the time. You don't have to wait for a sale. We'll just do it. I thought, well, that's pretty nice. So I bought all my cabinets from her at Lowe's. And Lowe's had a program, if you will, where if you were a contractor, you would get 5% off anything you bought. You'd just go through the register, pull out this card. It was like a credit card, but it wasn't a credit card. It looked like one, acted like one, but you couldn't charge anything on it. And that was your contractor card. And you would get 5% off everything. Well, Lowe's decided, when we lived in Virginia, it worked fine. And when we moved to Missouri, it worked fine for a short while, and then stopped working. And I said to the gal at the register, what happened to my 5% discount? She said, we don't do that anymore. I said, why? She said, well, it's not fair. It's not fair to who? Well, it's not fair to everybody else.
It's still fair to give 10% off to the military. His job is to kill people.
Yeah, so it's not fair to give 5% off to a customer of Lowe's who buys more than most people, okay? It's not fair to give discounts for volume, according to Lowe's. And then those guys at Lowe's decide to change their mind. And it's like, well, no, actually, we can give discounts to special people. Not to people who buy the most from us, but to people who blow stuff up and wreak havoc all over the world. Those people, we can give them discounts. Now, all of my uncles, except maybe one or two, were in World War II. My grandfather was in World War I. I think that there's, when you're attacked, yeah, that's the time to fight. But it's not the time to fight for corporations to beat up little countries all over the world and then reward the players who have been conned into doing this with discounts. Now, there are plenty of companies who offer discounts to the military. AT&T is one. Disney. Hey, you can go to Disney and get a special discount if you're in the destruction business. Absolutely. So you can go to the web and you can type in military discounts, and you'll find plenty of companies who are willing to give breaks to people who are in the destruction business. Verizon. So who are they? Here are just a few. Southwest Airlines, Disney World, Disneyland, AT&T, SeaWorld, Banana Republic, Old Navy, Home Depot, Lowe's, Verizon, to name just a few. And I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with treating people specially because of their occupation or preoccupation. If we're going to do that, I'd like to see the handicapped. Just a little bit more about Lowe's, the big box store. I went in months ago, and I mentioned this on the air. They had a big sign that said accepting applications. So I walked in, I did my Columbo, and the gal met me at the door. Hey, welcome to Lowe's. I said, I saw you had a sign out there, and big sign. It said, now accepting applications. She said, yeah, right down there. Just go down there, and they'll take your application. I said, well, I don't have any skills. She said, it's okay. I don't either. And they hired me. Well, so this is the gal that rang up I bought some corner bead, this thin metal stuff. It's like 10 feet long, and it's like $2 a stick. And I bought a bunch, not a lot, but and my bill came to $1,000 because she rang up the case price for each one of these sticks. A case price for each piece I bought. And she should have rung it up by the each rather than by the case. So my bill came to $1,000, and it was like 10 times more than it should have been. Easily 10 times. Anyway, so So this gal was a gal that I talked to over the weekend. And so there was this, I wanted to buy some plastic flexible conduit for our solar system. I need to run some wire from the solar panels to the house. And I wanted to put it underground, so I wanted this flexible plastic liquid tight conduit. And it comes on a 100-foot roll. Now, right next to that, you could buy it by the foot. And it said, contractor pack, $35 for 100 feet. And it was all shrink wrapped, 100% shrink wrapped in this package, $35. Or you could buy it by the foot and have the guy cut it, at 69 cents a foot. So it's twice as much if you buy it by the foot. So I needed about 100 feet, so I bought the 100-foot contractor pack. I brought it to the register, and she rings it up at $69. Why? Because it said 69 cents a foot, and it said there was 100 feet in this package. So I said, no, ma'am, it's $35. It says right there. But if you want, geez, I wish I had a phone. Because if I had one of those phone things, I could take a picture of it. I could have done that and shown you on the phone. And now the line's getting longer. Okay? She's trying to figure out what to do. I said, no, it's $35. It might be $35 and change, but it's about $35. And so she calls for the manager, and the manager doesn't come. So she yells for another manager who's maybe 50 feet away. And finally, he responds and comes over, and he says, no, it's $35. It says right here on the screen, $35. That's what this is. It's a shrink wrap. So here's that gal with no skills, and she proved it twice to me that she couldn't ring up the right amount. This is Lowe's. Now, class, why am I telling you this? Why am I telling the class
They're
this?
losing money because of her.
Well, yeah, because I hate
going there. There's people in that line who would never come back to Lowe's because of her.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the people who are in her line may be overcharged because of her lack of knowledge and certainly lack of skills. Now, she didn't even know what this thing was that I bought. Now, she's working in a big box place that sells all kinds of tools, supplies, for renovating your home. Obviously, they don't teach these people anything. They don't send them to 2 weeks worth of training to say, this is a nail, here are the different sizes of nails. Some of them are galvanized, some of them are not. These are finishing nails, these are common nails, these are spiral fluted nails, okay? These are decking nails, these are decking screws. This is paint, this is primer. You use primer, before you put the finish coat on. This is sandpaper, comes in different grits. These are 2x4s, these are 2x6s, these are 2x8s. They come in different lengths, starting, a little less than 8 feet long. Some of them are called pre-cuts. Some of them are 2x4x8. The 8 would be the 8 feet long. 10 would be 10 feet long. 12 would be 12 feet long. 14 would be 14 feet long. Do you think they teach these people that? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Now, if Lowe's is going to offer discounts to the military, I suggest they expand their program to offer it to the handicapped, the homeless, the unemployed, blacks, whites, reds, yellows, seniors, women, men, blind, deaf, dumb, wheelchair, overweight, underweight. That's just for starters. Okay, that's what you do. Offer it to have a different card for each one of us. Some of us could have a couple cards. Like me, I could be a white, skinny guy. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, we were talking about preparedness, and I think I've done enough to beat up Lowe's, that store I despise. But I was thinking about another store I despise. That's Best Buy. Best Buy, I don't know if you have them in Australia, but this is like an electronics place. And I remember wanting to buy a headset to do a live remote broadcast. And I didn't have one that was working right. And so I went into Best Buy in Virginia. I was traveling, and I wanted to buy a headset. And this guy helped me. At first he wanted to sell me one for about $80. And I said, no, I don't want that lime green thing. It's just, I'm not going to wear that. I just don't like the look of it, and I'm not going to spend that much. And I found one, a Plantronics brand, which is a good old brand. Of course, it's made in China, but That was about $20, and I was happy with that. I liked the way the boom worked and so forth, and I could plug it into a PC, and it would work. And it had the adapter for the microphone, the headphone, 3.5 millimeter connectors. Anyway, so I was leaving. I paid for it in the back, and I had it all paid for. I had the receipt, and I was walking out the door, and I got jumped by the security type people, those greeters, the reverse greeters, the exit patrol, to make sure I wasn't stealing it. And the guy said, "I need to see your receipt." And I said, what's the problem? He said, "Well, I just want to make sure, I need to see your receipt." And I said, no, I paid for it back there. I mentioned the guy's name, who I bought it from, and paid him. And I said, "No, I paid for it back there, and it's mine. You can't see it. I'm not going to prove to you that I paid for it. You got me on camera. Go look at the footage. But I'm not going to prove to you that I own everything that's in my pockets and this headset." And so a couple more security guys come over, and now it's like 3 of them to make sure that I'm not going to escape with this $20 thing. And I object to that. I object to being treated as a criminal. I said, "Well, get the manager." I'm paraphrasing. And so they got the manager, and the manager said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Well, I don't think these guys believe that I paid for this." He said, "Well, you can leave. Have a nice day." It's okay. So do I want to go to Best Buy? No. Now, what's Best Buy famous for right now? Well, selling a case of bottled water at nearly $43.
Wow,
now, because of the storm in Houston. Yeah, well, and what do? Well, it's like 24 bottles, $43. So how do they justify, or how do they explain it? It's always the same. It's the clerk's fault. It's those darn clerks. I guess we don't train them. We hire these people, and they go put signs on. They go and price whatever they want, wherever they want, and they make up the numbers. That's ridiculous. Let me tell you, clerks don't do that. Clerks don't go and pick prices.
It's the management sets the prices. That's the whole point.
That's right. So, but the management doesn't say, "You know what? We were going to gouge our customers, and we were going to take advantage of them because the storm was here, and people were panicking. They wanted water, and we thought we could take advantage of them. So we charged $43 for a case of water." No, they didn't say that. They blame the clerk.
Yep.
They always blame the
clerk. What I reckon everybody should do about their water situation, okay? If you get a 5,000-gallon tank, okay, it has a footprint of probably around about 9 or 10 feet, okay? It can fit in a driveway. And if you get a 5,000-gallon water tank and hook it up to your guttering system, and, the Homeowners Association can say whatever they want about you putting a 5,000-gallon water tank in your driveway. But if it's going to mean the difference of you having clean drinking water in an emergency and you not having clean drinking water in an emergency, you have to look after your own. That's just how it is. And I have done that in suburban properties in the past that I have owned. And the looks on the neighbours' faces when that crane came in and placed that 5,000-gallon tank in the place where it was meant to go, okay, was quite something to behold. But I said, I would turn around and I would say, "It's rainwater for my garden." And they would shrug and they would go back in their house. And do you know something? Within a short period of time, there was a garden planted around the tank of cacti, okay, and the tank grew into its place. And it hindered a view of my garage from the road, which was also handy. I was still able to get into my garage because it had a double door. The only thing was that I could no longer put motor vehicles in my garage, but because I also had another driveway with a carport, that wasn't a problem. So this is it. You have got to think about yourself and your family in a preparedness situation, because in New Zealand, the government would have their civil defence program but they would not do it for you. Their instructions were, as I remember them, have a box in your house somewhere at all times. In this box, you should have a flashlight. You should have a battery-powered radio. You should have at least a week's supply of food, preferably canned food that will not go off. And other preserves that you can cook and eat quickly and easily. You should have matches and lighters. You should have candles. And you should have all of these things that we normally regard. And they said, when you know that a disaster is imminent, put the plug in your bathtub and fill your bathtub and do not bathe in it. And that is excellent advice. And they said little things like the water in your toilet cistern in an emergency is drinkable. It's not contaminated, not the water in the bowl, but in an absolute emergency, you can drink the water from your toilet cistern. Okay?
Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about is the toilet tank. The tank on the back.
That's
not
right, at the top.
Not the bowl, but
at the top. Yep. Not the bowl. Not the bowl.
Mm-hmm.
The tank at the top in an absolute emergency is potable. You can drink that. Okay? But you would have to be desperate. You've got to get through the water in the bathtub first. Fill your sinks. Fill any pots and pans that you might have with tap water, okay? If you've got a big stock pot of the old-fashioned kind that they used, that once upon a time every household had for boiling bone broth, then fill that with water. Sit it on your sink. And do not use any of this water for washing. It is for drinking, okay? Any bottles, any cans, anything around your house, anything that will hold water, fill it with water as soon as an emergency is announced. And especially bottles like soft drink bottles, soda bottles, vinegar bottles, any bottle that has had beverages or things like oil or vinegar in it in the past that is not poisonous, not things like laundry product bottles or anything like that, okay? But like I said, the best idea of all is if you feel embarrassed to do the 5,000-gallon tank thing, you ring up the rural supplies. They'll deliver it anywhere, okay? IBC cubes. If you can find a local, go on the internet and search, or if you know of a farm supply store, or if you know of a local food manufacturer, and if you have a one-ton truck, or if you have a car and a trailer, pick up a few IBC cubes, okay? Those are the square cubes with the metal cage and the plastic cubic tank inside. But please make sure it's food grade, okay? Make sure that it has been used for carrying something like molasses or, high fructose corn syrup or something like that, okay? We all know high fructose corn syrup's bad, but compared to Roundup, it's not that bad, okay? So the main thing is make sure it's food grade and fill that either with rainwater or even in an emergency tap water, okay? If you need to get it filled quickly, if there's an emergency coming. Because, yes, in the long run, tap water will probably kill you, but in an emergency, you're far more likely to die of thirst or of cholera than from drinking tap water, okay? This is really, really important. And the other thing that they said was put a copy, I don't know if anyone has a phone book anymore, put a copy of this phone book, and these instructions were in the back of the telephone directory. They said put a copy of this telephone directory in the box Okay? That's for two reasons. One reason in New Zealand was they had a cultural thing that the Civil Defence Department encouraged. They said, if you have to evacuate, tear off the back page of this phone directory, which was coloured bright yellow, and stick it in your letterbox on your way out the door. That indicates, listen, there's looters out and about anyway. If your place is going to get looted, it's going to get looted. But it indicates to the emergency services that you've already gone. It saves them valuable time in having to search your property. Okay? And, these days, they advise them to put up a sheet.
We'll be right back. You know, Guineith, we were talking about civil defense, and you were talking about a couple uses for the phone book. One was for the information about civil defense, and putting that, tearing out that yellow sheet and sticking it in your mailbox on the way out. What was another use for the phone book?
Okay, a fire starter.
Yeah.
Rip the pages out, two at a time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that they didn't mention in the Civil Defence Guide, that is, as far as I know, it's still in the cover of every New Zealand phone book, in the back cover. But I don't know that it's still there because it's been many, many years since I've lived in New Zealand. But phone companies might want to take note. A supply of kindling and firewood, okay, and an axe. A small hatchet-type axe will probably do if you don't feel confident using a full-size axe, okay? Mm-hmm. But then you will have fire. And also, here they call them billies, okay, which is a lightweight aluminium, or whatever material happens to be made out of a cooking pot, okay? Like I said, in an emergency situation, not having a good small cooking vessel is more likely to kill you than that cooking vessel being made of aluminium. Aluminum, I believe they call it in the United States. Mess kit,
right? We call
probably
it
is a better option. Probably a mess kit would be a better option. But here in Australia, they have a unique kind of cooking pot called a billy, okay? And it's specifically made for camp cooking. But if you had a billy and a mess kit, you can use a mess kit as I believe that there is usually a small cooking pot in a mess kit, and it folds up with the handle across the top, and it usually clips together. But if you had a billy and a mess kit, then you could probably easily cook for a family. A mess kit for each person, okay? These little things, and a small supply of dry firewood, okay? I'm talking about just maybe even a box or two, and like I said, even a small hatchet or a small axe, you can go outside, if it's safe, and prune the trees in your garden and bring them in and cut them up for firewood, if you have to. The trees will grow back. But you have to have that initial small dry supply because you need to build a fire in order to dry out more wood. Okay, so you put the wood that you have that's dry, you make a fire with it, and before you build the fire, you go out and you get more wood from outside. It might be wet, it might be green, etc., etc. But if you stack it around the fire, it will dry enough to be usable as firewood, okay, within just maybe half an hour or an hour. and you keep that cycle going, and you will have warmth, and warmth is so essential for cooking, for keeping dry, and also for keeping people's spirits up, okay? And depending on the kind of house you have, you may have a back patio. You can build the fire out in the undercover patio. If you're in an apartment, you may find that you have to make a small stove out of something like an old can or something like that, okay? You have to learn to be creative, and you have to learn to be imaginative, but whatever you do, don't burn the apartment building down, okay? Use your own common sense. Put the stove on something that will not burn, like a concrete slab, okay? And, you know, if you have to survive in place. If you are ordered to evacuate, I would say that it's a very, very good idea to do so if you can do so safely. But if you're ordered to evacuate, probably already it's too late to evacuate. Okay? If you're going to evacuate, by far the best thing to do is to leave several days ahead of the curve, if you possibly can.
There you go. Plus, if you'd like to contact Guineith Isaacs in Australia, you can contact her through the link at USA Prepares on the instructors tab, also on page 1 of USA Prepares. Guineith, you're talking about a couple of things. I wanted to make a couple quick comments. Phone books. Now, other than the historical value that you may see in having a phone book, you know, to show maybe your grandchildren. Can you imagine this? Grandchildren, we used to use these, and we would look up phone numbers in these books. Well, they don't have them anymore, but you know, I can imagine we're going to be doing away with phone books in the near future. But there's another use for the pages of a phone book, and that is toilet paper. It's not the first choice. It's not the first choice, but it might be the second choice, and the second choice may be the first choice. You know, depending on whether you have, you know, rolled toilet paper or not. So that's a thought. Next thing is we're talking about not burning down the apartment or the kitchen or the house. And when we tiled our bathrooms here at the farmhouse, we used these 13 by 13 inch tiles, and they're like ceramic. And I bought extra ones, so if someone drops something hard and shatters one of them, I can pop it out and put in a replacement, and it would match. Okay, so we have some spares, but I have some others that I put rubber feet on. They're 13 inches by 13 inches, and we place them on the kitchen counter. We have a Formica counter. We don't have one of those fancy counters that's granite or Corian or, you know, one of the other higher end counters. We just have the plain old Formica, and so it's plastic. And could it catch on fire? Yeah, I guess it could. So what we do is we have these 13 by 13 inch tiles, put some rubber feet on them, and the toaster's on one of them. Okay, and if we use one of those little convection ovens that would be a countertop, you know, a little oven, and that's on one of them. And the coffee maker is on one of them because they get hot on the bottom. So just a thought, you may want to consider doing what we do. Now, the reason we have rubber feet on them is because the bottoms of these are really rough, and they're harder than the Formica. So if you slide them around, you're going to scratch up the Formica. So we have to use these rubber feet. Next thing is I looked up the IBC cubes or IBC totes that you were talking about, 275-gallon cube-shaped containers. They're made out of plastic, same color as milk jugs around the United States. 275 gallons with the metal cage around them, and the valve on the bottom, and the cap on the top with a screw-type cap. You can fill them with water. $50. You go pick them up with a pickup truck. You can fit two of them side by side in the bed of a pickup truck, and they're lightweight. So literally, if one person had to, you could lift it yourself. It's a lot more pleasant with two people. But 275 gallons, roughly 4 feet by 4 feet, and 4 feet high. So 4 feet deep, 4 feet wide, 4 feet high in a metal cage, and you can stack two of them. And so we have some of them on the farm, but don't buy the ones with Roundup. You know, you might find them with vegetable oil. You might find them with high fructose corn syrup. You might find some with food products in them. Make sure that you see the label. Make sure it says that it's, food, you had food in it or something like that.
FDA.
But no chemical. Yes.
Yep.
Nothing less. Nothing less. Okay? And then how do you clean them? Here's what I did. I took some food grade ones, and I put them in the back of a pickup truck, and I tilted it so the front of the pickup truck was going uphill. And I put the drain spout facing downhill toward the tailgate. And I rinsed them out with a garden hose. And then what I did was, after I rinsed it out, I put some water in it, put a couple drops of dishwashing detergent, liquid, in there with maybe 5 gallons of water, and I strapped them in the back of the pickup truck, and I took the truck for a ride.
On
turning
a
left,
country
turning
dirt
right.
road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that way, it sloshed all around, and then I brought them home, opened the valve, drained them out, rinsed them out again, added some more water, took them for another ride with just water in them to rinse them out, and then drained them out, and then rinsed them with a garden hose, and then did that several times until I was convinced that there was none, if any, product left in there or detergent. And then you want to keep them out of the sun, and you can fill them with water, and you can fill them 90% with water, and you don't want to go more than that, and you want to keep them in a place where they won't freeze. Now, I don't know if freezing will crack them or not, but I don't want to take the chance, because water expands when it gets frozen. So what I do is I keep them where they will not freeze, and I have 275 gallons plus 275 gallons of water. Actually, ours are 330-gallon totes. So about 300 gallons of water in each one. And you can do the same thing. And, if your civic association objects to that, I have an answer for that. And when I lived in another state, well, here's what I did. I wanted to build a garage, and a freestanding garage, because I wanted to convert the garage under the house into a playroom or a living room where our children could play as they were growing up. They were very small. And the Civic Association said, no, you can't do that. You can't have that garage. It's 2 feet too tall. And we want to make sure it's the right color to match the house. And we want to make sure that the exterior is the same, but it's too tall. And I said, well, I need it this tall because I want to put some storage in the upper part of the garage. I don't want to waste the space above where I park the cars. It was just a 2-car garage. And they gave me a hard time. And I said, you know what, you're right. You're right. Forget the garage. I'm just going to put up a tent. I'm going to park my cars in the tent. And I found the circus tent. And I found the circus tent. It's not exactly the colors I would like. It's got some orange stripes, and some yellow stripes, and some white stripes. But, it's affordable. And it's temporary. I can keep it up for years and years and years, but it's not permanently attached. So there is no approval necessary. So you're right, and I really appreciate you guys helping me to come to this conclusion, because I would have spent a lot more on that garage. And they said, tell you what, put up the garage.
That's it. Survival has to come before what some stupid homeowners association or municipality says. And, you've got to look after the best interests of your own family is what you've got to do. There's 2 other items that I forgot that should go into your survival kit, okay? One of them is a projectile firing device, okay, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
If you can get a firearm where you are, you should get a firearm, at least one, preferably one for each member of the family. And if you say, well, I've got 2 kids aged 5 and 7, I say, good. Well, if you can, get them some air guns, BBs, they'll be able to go out and maybe shoot some birds, bring them home, and you can cook them. But it teaches them that, of weapons handling is what it teaches them. If the area that we are in, if I bought a firearm, I could be arrested and put in jail just for the fact of me owning a firearm without the permission of the local sex racketeering cartel, okay, Blue Team. So at this time, that's not a chance I'm happy to take. but there are other projectile firing devices, okay, that you can have without the risk of warming a jail cell, okay? You can get catapults, and you can get bows of arrows, and you can get various other projectile firing devices which you can do your own research on. You can make them or you can buy them, but certainly have at least one and learn how to use it before the disaster time happens. And the other item I would absolutely include in the kit is a Bible. That will give you your spiritual welfare is so important. And if you've got a Bible to read, then it will keep you going through the most depressing times. If you read the Word of God and somehow you just open it up and it just happens to fall on just that Bible verse that you need at that time, that's absolutely essential. And that can be just as much the difference between life and death for you at a vital moment as having a clean water supply or a source of food or fire, or, like I said, a projectile firing device. I'm very glad that I remembered those two items, because those will become, together with your fire starting kit, will become the most important parts of your life in a grid down emergency situation.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about something else, too. In our kitchen, we have a telephone. Actually, we have a couple telephones. And, for example, I have a telephone system here in the farmhouse, and it has multiple lines, but it's got line 1, 2, 3, or 4. We don't have that many lines. But what it requires is AC power. So it has this little wall transformer that you plug in, and that lets this telephone operate. It lets the caller ID function screen operate. It has a speakerphone, and it's a little computer in an old 20-something-year-old telephone, and you can plug them in to one or two lines, and you can have intercom features, throughout the farmhouse or your house. But it requires a wall outlet in order to operate. So if there's a disaster, and if we did not have a solar system, an inverter and a battery bank, we would not be able to use that telephone should the power fail. And what happens is, at the telephone company, there's a central office, and they have battery backup systems that keep the telephone lines, if you have a landline, operating in the event of a power failure or power outage. Well, it won't do any good if the telephone lines work and you have a telephone that requires AC power. So why don't you consider getting an older phone that doesn't require a wall transformer, one that just operates on a telephone power. I just went to the internet and I looked up how much basic landline telephones cost, and you get them for less than $5 at the Chinese factory outlet. And if you want one that's a little more sophisticated, you can spend maybe $15 or so. So just a thought, and you may be able to find one at a garage sale, an old telephone. I have the one that my mom and dad had when I was growing up in the 60s. We had a red-themed kitchen, and so we had a red phone on the wall. It was a wall phone, a rotary dial. Still have it. They seem to be collector's items on eBay, well over $100. But my plan is to make sure that thing still works and hang it up on the wall in our kitchen, that we have right now. So that's my plan, so that I can make some phone calls. I still have it's called a princess phone. You have a cradle and you have the handset, and you can pick up the whole thing and walk around with it. Very inexpensive, and it works. So I just don't want to be trapped by not being able to get out. And I do not like the idea of the telephone companies not wanting to add more landlines. It seems like they want to do away with landlines and keep us all trapped on cell phones. Are they doing the same thing in Australia?
They absolutely are. Yeah, where we are. Mm-hmm. I have to have a landline because of my work. I work as a telephonist. And basically it's a requirement of the employment that you have a landline because cell phones are just not reliable. And they don't want the calls dropping out because they lose money, they lose clients, and there's other companies that their clients will end up going to because it's a very, very competitive industry. But what they're doing here is they are not maintaining the landline system as they ought to. Our local telephone exchange is, it's not a manned exchange. It sits out in the middle of the forest in a wooden building with a leaky roof. Shame on you, Telstra. Mm-hmm. This is a issue of life and death. Out here, the landline system, I would say probably about 3/4 of the households out here still have a landline. But even so, mm-hmm. that exchange probably wouldn't have more than a few hundred subscribers, which is absolutely tiny. And but it sits out in the middle of the forest in a wooden building with a leaky roof. Every time it rains, mm-hmm. the roof leaks and water drips onto the telephone equipment, which is not good. What normally happens mm-hmm. if water drips onto electrical equipment, Vincent? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. You tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me share this story with you very quickly. Chicago Tribune. Dateline, May 4th, 2017. Illinois customers stubbornly hang on to your old landline telephone service. AT&T has a new plan for you. Switch to a modern alternative or face disconnection. Okay? AT&T is pushing for legislation pending Federal Communication Commission approval that would allow it to unplug the aging voice-only network and focus on wireless and internet-based phone offerings that have supplanted it. That's what AT&T wants to do. They want to unplug voice-only telephone lines. And I like our landline, and I believe the uptime is well over 99.9%. That thing works and works and works, and you can always depend on it, or almost always. But cell phones, not the case. People call us and they tell us they try to call us, the calls won't go through. Well, it's not our end; it's their end. They've got these cell phones, and they say that our landline's not working.
The fact that most businesses operate on a PABX system.
Yeah, landlines.
Landline.
Yep, that's right, because they need them to work.
You're
absolutely right. Guineith, I'm going to see you tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Well, you have a lovely day, won't you?
You too. Thanks for being with us and sharing your thoughts on preparedness. It's Guineith Isaacs. Link on the website, usaprepares.com. The instructors tab. Class, there's a book, Black & Decker. It's a wiring book. It's the best available, in my opinion. I suggest you consider getting it. How to Wire Your Home. It's about $5 on the internet.